Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get ready to start in 2 minutes. So you could take your seats. In the next 2 minutes, we're not going to do that again. But we're going to start with the blessing and a song and a performance. And so we hope you stick around. And if you see folks or know of folks that are outside, make sure you message them and let them know that the show's about to start. Thank you all.
Mientras el planeta se quema, mientras la clase trabajadora tiene que emigrar porque no hay otra opción, mientras los derechos laborales sucumben ante los intereses de la clase empresarial, mientras la comunidad LGBTQ+ está siendo perseguida, mientras la...
All right, we're about to start. Hello, everybody. Me hija ne hinkam, ne tuanya ne, Tina Orduno Calderon, komikra bet naha tongve, koi mixkanakan, koi yoeme, awesh koneha kwa avo manete hovet tamet. Hello, my relatives. I am Tina Orduno Calderon, Gabrielino Tongva, Ventureño Chumash, and Yoeme, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you today. I was asked to do a land acknowledgement, and so I want to start by acknowledging my tribal relatives, past, present, and emerging. They're the original Tarahatam, or peoples, of Tovangad. And Tovangad is our world. It's the territory that we knew. And beyond what people think, that it's only the LA Basin, it's actually a much bigger territory. It starts in the San Fernando Valley and goes all the way south to Newport Beach, east along the Santa Ana River to Corona and Riverside, and back along the foothills. This is unceded territory. We never gave up our land, we never sold it, we were removed from it. And so I really do appreciate the inclusion. I also want to acknowledge my ancestors who left us very important teachings about living in reciprocity with the earth, the waters, the minerals, the plant, and the animal relatives. You know, in Tongva, we don't have a word for nature because we are not separate from it. We are part of it. And with that, I'm going to offer an ancestor song. And I really do appreciate you all allowing us to speak and to share with you. Aweshkone hai yo kon, aweshkone hai yo kon, orura mahe kwa e pare yo hiken e yo kon, aweshkone ha, aweshkone ha, aweshkone ha. Aweshkone hai yo kon, orura mahe kwa e pare yo hiken e yo kon, aweshkone ha, aweshkone ha, aweshkone hai yo kon. Aweshkone hai yo kon, orura mahe kwa e pare yo hiken e yo kon, aweshkone ha, aweshkone ha, aweshkone hai yo kon, aweshkone hai yo kon, orura mahe kwa e pare yo hiken e yo kon, aweshkone ha, aweshkone ha. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the song that I chose to sing, it's actually a Mother Earth song. Because when we talk about ancestors, like I said, we didn't take ourselves apart from the nature. So it's not just human-centric. It is all life that has been here, has experienced, and went into the spirit realm. So this is Mother Earth song, and it just thanks our Earth Mother for giving everything that we need to survive, everything. And with that, I would like to ask you, as the current and new caretakers, to help us, to give voice to the waters, to give voice to the lands. We're here to talk about a lot of things that are going on, people issues, but it's also land issues and water issues. And I also want to call attention to what's happening in the Amazon rainforest. The climate issues are not going to go away if we don't start taking care of that nature and the trees. So use your voices, good people. Let your elected officials know that we need to take care of the nature. Thank you so much for having me. Blessings to each and every one of you.
Peace, y'all. My name is Jag Arriola.
My name is Native Threat.
We're a hip hop duo called Kosmik Force.
Yes,
Please,
yes.
one more time, make some noise for Miss Calderon.
Yes.
From the Tongva Nation.
Tongva Keech land.
Before we move forward, again, acknowledge that we are on unceded, unsurrendered, indigenous Tongva land. So please, make some noise for yourselves for being here.
Yep.
So again, we go by Kosmik Force. We're a hip hop duo. We're going to get right into this. It's going to get a little aggressive, but that's what we're here to do against the imperialism, against the colonial fascists. Let's get into this
Let's
first
go.
one.
This is Shine On. Let's roll.
Yeah. Kosmik Force. Los Angeles, make some motherfucking noise. We are here. 2020, babies born inside an ice camp while our loop is trapped. Cuffs on her hands, her first Mother's Day was spent inside a cage. Centros of torture, detention centers, adelantos where they sent us. That's where these John Smiths just hope to end us. And the Navajo Nation, decimated, neglected by the Trump administration. That's the white virus. Pause it, give me a second, yo. We gotta get the sound fixed. We'll get the sound fixed, yo.
Yeah.
Give us just a second, real quick. Make some noise for all the workers that are here present.
Everybody for your labor, thank you.
Everybody that set up the lights, the people cleaning the space, thank you.
Yeah. Yo, can y'all hear me? Y'all hear me?
Is it? Are we clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Check.
Yeah, check.
Check. Check.
Yo, how's the sound?
My mic up a little bit.
Still bad? All right.
Can you restart it?
Yo, you guys have other mics?
Different mics?
You guys have different mics so we can use? Is it the speakers?
Just like panels.
Okay.
For sure.
Yo, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Y'all hear it?
Check.
That's better? All right, let's go.
All right, let's get it. It's all good. This is underground.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get it.
America.
America 2020. Babies born inside an ice camp. Guadalupe is trapped. Cuffs on her hands. Her first Mother's Day was spent inside a cage. Centros of torture, detention centers, adelantos where they send us. That's where these John Smiths just hope to end us. And the Navajo Nation, decimated, neglected by the Trump administration. That's the white virus terrorizing the planet. And fuck Joe Biden and all of his cronies. Free all of the homies, Chicanos and Morenos, Cambodians too. Gun them down once they stand behind that podium booth. Life for the two-spirit's been traumatic. After making the contact with the English and Spanish, crippled or standing, you're a part of this action. Able or disabled, handicapped, you're a part of our ejército fam. The helicopter still circling above our municipio, but so are my relatives. A condor in the south, in the north it's the eagle. We're still under attack by these blue-eyed people. Make some motherfucking noise.
Every child, y'all say matters. Every child.
When we say fuck, y'all say ice. Fuck. When we say every child, y'all say matters. Every child. When we say fuck, y'all say ice. Fuck.
This for the forgotten.
By the hand of the state.
Murdered and raped, life disregarded, light a candle
In your grace.
Oil industries with their man camps
Need to get banned.
on the cities
Support McLands.
and many territories fighting for natural
Living earth, mother since birth.
It's a struggle we tussle, refusal to quit. In the spirit of missing murdered indigenous
Women we walk.
with the fire in our hearts. Monster of men selling women, children as commodities of
Sex trafficking all over the world.
directly affecting black and brown communities, even our own family
Praying.
members praying on the vulnerable.
Fuck dialogue, how about we hang 'em up?
Disposable, colonial, patriarchal world is cold. Trans relatives brutalized, no one best than I. So I light a candle, flame burn,
Yeah,
shine.
when I say every child, y'all say matters. Every child. When we say fuck, y'all say ice. Fuck.
When we
fuck.
say- All right, let's
Make
go,
some
man.
motherfucking noise.
Yeah. Going to the next.
I don't know, the mic stopped working. I don't think the mics are working. Where we go next?
Another day. We're gonna lighten up the mood a
We're
little
gonna lighten
bit.
up the mood a little bit. We're
Yeah.
not just, we're not just beasts. Even though the white man calls us beasts, we're not beasts.
Let's go.
Let's get into this next one, another day. Yeah,
Live.
another day.
Yeah. Let's go. Trying to live my life,
not the way God intended,
but the way my ancestors planted seeds and tended. Ain't trying to spit impressive, I don't do it for incentives. I do it for my family, I do it for my primos, I do it for my aunties, I do it for my tíos, abuelitos, Pueblo Unido, for my Masawali and the campesinos, Filipinos, sacrificing for survival, feeding ungrateful Americans, spiteful, talking about shoulda came here legally, like them pilgrims that rape, pillage frequently. Check it, G, never get the hood out of me. Popping in my sector, heart pump blood of nomadic chichimecas. I ain't ignorant to the fact we need more than love, sacrifice and fight. We just trying to get by, smudging down with the smoke of cedar. Offer flesh to our mother, just a sliver. Sing a song to the river, iridescent dark feather. Burning medicinal with the love of my life. Under Tonati light, high, connected with the land. Where I stand, rattle in hand, with my band. Grateful for the day,
I heard the wind say,
live on another
day.
Connecting with the land,
Where I stand,
rattle in hand,
with my band.
Grateful for the day, I heard the wind say, live on another day, live on another day.
Guardianos de altar, can't domesticate jaguar. Somos hijos del volcán, tambores del alma. Los ataco con garra, I'm boots on the ground. Today, mañana y el día que sigue, you will be missed. Dear Vanessa Guillen, aretes are beaded, long hair is braided. Half my head is shaven, can't straighten what's fluid. The two spirits sacred like Muisca ruins. Hawad, I beat the case I wasn't supposed to win. When you pick sobriety, you chose to win. From the side of the city where civilians speak Spanish. Not my language, but the lengua of Princess Isabella. An architect of genocide like Juniper Serra. She sponsored decimation of our pre-Hispanic nations. I'm a pre-Hispanic native and I swear to defend the feathers that adorn my head. Connected with the land where I stand. LA, make some motherfucking noise if you are here.
I heard the wind say, live on another day,
live on another day. Yeah.
Where
are we going next, Native Threat?
Oh, shit. Yes, sir, every direction.
Ooh.
I forgot the direction, every direction. Let's go.
This might get taking y'all off the copyright off YouTube. We don't own the beat. We stole it, but they stole our land, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's go. Every direction.
Let's go.
North, south, east, west. Every direction in the medicine wheel.
Cosmik Force up in this.
On the ancestors.
On the ancestors. Yeah, my folks have been through the trenches, spitting sounds of the essence, like scratching up vinyl. Only use of a Bible, rolling my J's to pages of Revelations. Blasphemous, skeptic native, yeah they hating, bootlicking loving the swine. Motherfuckers lucky, we ain't flipped this bitch upside down, pulling triggers, spitting AK rounds, instead spitting to these sounds. No need for a crown, up in the field nowadays what's fake and what's real. Keep your eyes peeled and load up your steel, never will I kneel. Yeah, this for my natives down south. This for my natives in the east. This for my natives in the west. This for my natives up north. This for my natives down south. This for my natives in the east. This for my natives in the west. This for my natives. The state don't wanna rival like me. I'm not federally recognized, no tribal ID. Them ice pigs been driving by my radio lately. This paint in the street speaks giant stone heads. No pile on my forehead. Me and Threat, descendants of the old man. El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua. Indigena rep, this for my natives on the res. We taking the streets, school teachers in Oaxaca. KF boys, we some rebels, motherfucker. They gave us a fake ass book that was supposed to be holy. Cause of that, we never knew our own creation story. I'm a savage, never tasted a 40. Sobriety, a lifelong ceremony. Growing up, I only fuck with gutter rappers and shorty. Smack these mumble rappers, make them tumble backwards. Put me in the ring with them. I ain't never sipping lean with them. This for my natives down south. This for my natives in the east. This for my natives in the west. This for my natives up north. This for my natives down south. This for my natives in the east. This for my natives in the west. This for my native. Make some noise, LA, Tonga land. Yeah. Hey, yo, pause.
We're doing our best up here with, the mics and the system, so, all love.
Yeah, before we get into the next song, which mic could y'all hear better, mine or his?
Check.
They're both equally bad? Try it out? All right, let's go.
The thing is, then it won't catch on the stream, though.
All right, no worries, let's go. All right, let's go.
Won't catch it on the stream, it's all good. We want our people everywhere to be able to hear us.
Let's go.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all for bearing with us.
Yes, thank you. Hey, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, pause that real quick. Pause. Hey, yo, before we get into this next one is called Lo Nuestro Nunca Muere, what is ours will never die. And so before we get in it, y'all gotta help us out a little bit. When we say sangre indígena, you say en mis venas. Sangre indígena. Sangre indígena. Nah, y'all get a little louder.
Come on, I know y'all are alive. It's been a long motherfucking day. Wake up a little bit. Come on. Wake up, please.
When I say sangre indígena, you say en mis venas. Sangre indígena.
Sangre indígena.
All right, let's
go.
Let's get to it. What is ours will never die. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. LA. Tombaland.
Much respect. Yeah. Llegó la chuparrosa a mi jardín. Combate mortal en el ring o la jaula. En el río de la montaña, Guatemala, Cuculcán. Serpiente emplumada, nunca falla mi escopeta. Venganza en mi letra, soy Mochi Olmeca. No una mezcla, contesta mi pregunta. ¿Acepta ser mestizo? Las castas el racismo. Hijo, bastardos de España. Un trofeo del Vaticano y el Papa. Jamás yo recibí bendición del jaguar. Nunca de tu Dios que no hizo nada cuando nos mataban. Cut this shit out. I can't hear the beat. Cut it out. I want to do this shit a cappella. It's fucking me up. Can you cut it off, please? Yo, llegó la chuparrosa a mi jardín. Combate mortal en el ring o la jaula. En el río de la montaña, Guatemala, Cuculcán. Serpiente emplumada, nunca falla mi escopeta. Venganza en mi letra, soy Mochi Olmeca. No una mezcla. Contesta mi pregunta, ¿acepta ser mestizo? Las castas el racismo. Hijo, bastardo de España, un trofeo del Vaticano y el Papa. Jamás yo recibí mi bendición del jaguar. Nunca de tu Dios que no hizo nada cuando nos mataban los españoles, portugueses, ingleses. Así que protege nuestras aguas como el cacique. Enriquillo, con equilibrio y balance. Cada día nace un cascante en Amashle. Make some noise real quick.
Yeah.
Excuse my, I didn't mean to sound off rude. It was a little frustrating because I can't hear the beat. It's throwing me off. Yo, you want to go a cappella?
All right, let's just do it a cappella. Yo. Aquí estamos y no los vamos, escupiendo rayos a los gusanos. Nativo urbano, orgulloso, fuerza cósmica, la banda, camarada. Me vale mierda la lana, activo, brinco como rana. La cultura indígena sana, México hasta Panamá. Peleando por liberación de la tierra. Es guerra, corporaciones europeos, criollos vendidos, sin espíritu, sin
corazón humano no son.
Cuando miro a los abuelos,
sol y luna,
poder pura en la lucha, escucha a los elementos
que nos dan vida cada día.
Humilde le doy ofrenda, entrena la mente física y espíritu. Armas también, ya sabes,
el gobierno no te va a salvar.
Solo son buenos pa' mamar.
Make some noise, Native Threat is here, Cosmik Force.
Yeah.
We got some more, let's rock this last acapella, yo. Alacranes venenosos, check it. Alacranes venenosos somos nosotros. Con la pluma de un guacamaya rayan las paredes. Retrocarga recortada se defiende en Bolivia. Mi gente aymara es mi sangre andina. Las estrellas me iluminan, linaje del Caribe. El sol me recibe, permite Padre Cielo. Mi voz es un trueno, hazte un lado. Dos trenzas de mi pelo como toro sentado. Make some noise one more time, please. Yo, talk to him. Straight?
We're good. We'll go to the next.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yes.
We'll go by Cosmik Force. Thank you to all the organizers.
We got one.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
We got one more.
We got one more.
Let's try to rock it. Let's go.
Let's get it. Let's try it. One more attempt. Let's go.
We got one more. Let's go. Y'all turn it up. I need the beat.
It's an anti-imperialist revolution. No Yankees allowed in this motherfucking house. No Yankees. No colonizers. Throw Joe Biden through a windshield. Sober up. Get them antidepressants off your tongue, warrior up. Closer to the sun. Undocumented, unafraid slaves to none. Mexico mama came from, no assimilation. KF camp. You know he can't stop, we taking risks like Pop when he rushed Baby Lane. I'm drumming first, I'm from that place of the hummingbirds. Celestial patterns on my shield when I hit the battlefield. These Spaniards like to claim hell is a fiery lake, but in my nation's territory, we blaze the flames. Kill me in the war zone, I'm back as a hurricane. Native, not American, let my braids hang. Vicious, not fictitious, when I rhyme, you'll get slashed in the face. Dig a berriquillo, it's time to hunt foes. Build or destroy, according to the cosmos. Exonerate the innocent, liberate the elk bone. These pilgrims want to kill us all like they did the buffalo. Thumper on my lap with no safety. Non-existent like the USA soon. Europeans want to cage me cause I'm true to my roots. No forgiveness, I'm a hostile Indian. I ain't down with the troops, I ain't down with the troops. I ride.
Cosmik Force run through like a
Stampede.
of colonized MCs.
Live free.
Untamed, unchained. We were hit
For the game name.
Enemies
Still the same name.
Racist,
Fascists up all the shots.
locking children in cages.
Shit ain't right.
So we fight.
Silent no more.
Straight raw.
Love growing stronger.
Radical mind like
Killmonger.
I done stop the drug abuse. Sniffing white guzzling alcohol.
Opioids and all.
Detox. Body drenched in sweat.
Calisthenic sets.
Combat ready, ain't steady. Kill hard,
Harder to kill.
stay deadly.
Hell yeah, I'm pissed.
Corporations controlling
Politics.
making billions for campaign. A liberal wage, exporting
Oppressed in my b-boy stance.
Getting off my neck, no gold.
Diamonds, a medicine bag. Incinerate a flag.
Only allegiance to spirits of my forefathers. Brown faces,
We facing.
ethnic cleansing, we descendants. Originals,
Olmec helmets.
Matrix, want us locked in a cell quick. Move
Smart, swift, and bump this underground.
hip hop shit.
Make some motherfucking noise, LA.
Yeah. Yo, thank y'all for having us. Minus all these, difficulties.
Thank you guys for having us. Appreciate y'all.
Peace, Kosmik Force. Thank you.
Check us
Thank you
out.
so much. Can we give a huge applause? This was amazing. Thank you. Well, before we start the panel, we wanted to make an announcement, not the type of announcement that we would want to be making here at the People's Summit, but an important announcement. This is coming from our comrades in Brazil, and it's in Spanish. El indigenista Bruno Pereira y el periodista inglés John Phillips desaparecieron el domingo 5 en la región de tierra indígena Vale do Javari, en Brasil. La segunda más grande del país y la región con mayor
The biggest region in the country and the largest number of indigenous people isolated in the moment that are found in the Amazon. The Amazon is a place of struggle that are fueled by trafficking, the stealing of land and fish. There is some isolated indigenous, and these environmentalists have been threatened before, just like the indigenous leaders from that region. The fauna that was attacked, constantly attacked. The agency, leaving the whole place unprotected, and the employees at risk. The advancement of the killing spaces and the illegal mining in the space, it increases deforestation and also threatens the indigenous peoples, especially in the region where so many isolated peoples that have been displaced by these threats, In the case, this is another example of the advancement of the criminals against indigenous people, like in Brazil. A kid was raped, a kid from the Yanomami community was raped, and their lands have been invaded by more than 35,000 illegal miners. and we're creating this search party for this environmentalist that was disappeared, and also created international mobilization against the federal government to that the federal government negated and didn't want to respond to the search party request. And the Observatory of Indigenous Human Rights is the recent contact that operates in the region. They're active in the search of Brudoidon. We please ask you to keep these people in your prayers, and that these territories are actually finally protected against mining and from being displaced and illegal occupation.
Y ahorita vamos a empezar con el panel. La plenaria.
Here, there's 3, and we got 2.
Are they on?
Yeah, let's turn them on.
They're on? Are they? Could you check?
Yeah, they're on.
Si los panelistas pueden subir, por favor, if the panelists can start making their way, please.
How are you? Good. You too.
Hi. Excuse me. Citlalli. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing? Phillip.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Phillip. Nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you too.
How are you?
Good. How you doing? What up, Joseph?
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Thank you. Thank you for starting us off. That was amazing. So this is the plenary for where we're going to be discussing the struggle for democracy. And I just want to introduce myself just real quick. My name is Kenia Alcocer. I'm an organizer with Unión de Vecinos and the Los Angeles Tenants Union. Thank you. I am also part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival here in California. And we are here today because we're going to be talking about democracy and the hypocrisy, right? And one of the things that we need to talk about is how here in the United States, the right to vote is under attack. How America has imposed itself with force to undermine the efforts of countries in Latin America to build democracy from the bottom up. and how the United States claims to be the defender of democracy around the world. And just to give a context, especially for our comrades that are coming from all over the continent to have a discussion, I think that it is important to talk about what's really happening in the United States. Because obviously the media, the corporate media is not talking about this. Here in the United States, we have 140 million poor, low-income, dispossessed people living here today. And I'm sure those numbers since the pandemic have gone up. There's a lot of us that are an emergency away from losing our home and from losing our stability. And that is a reality that it's here in Los Angeles, and we saw it during the pandemic. A lot of our folks passed away because they didn't have access to health care. A lot of our folks lost their jobs. A lot of our folks were forced to work because we became essential only for a second. We were essential to work, but not essential enough to give us what we needed to survive this pandemic. We have over an $800 billion that are designated towards our military structure that we don't need, to be quite honest. Money that could have been directed to building more hospitals and giving people health access. And then one of the things the reason why we're here today is because this democracy that it's being sold to us by the United States needs to change. And the people that need to change it are here sitting today. We are all doing the work every day of changing the democracy that they so claim to be the democracy that we need. So I'm gonna be here with our panelists that are gonna be speaking on the struggles for democracy in the different sectors of the movements that we work in. And our amazing speakers that are joining us today is Dr. Melina Abdullah, Pablo Alvarado, Citlalli Hernández Mora, and Phillip Agnew. And I would like for us to give them all a round of applause. So the speakers will be introducing themselves individually, and we will invite them to share from their work and their experience of their struggles for the democracy that they've been searching in the United States. We'll invite them to share, to be in conversation with each other, and we're gonna make sure that this is something that it's reflective and really inspired by the work that they've been doing on the ground, but also the work that all of you have been doing here. So just want to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Melina Abdullah, co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots professor and former chair of Pan-African Studies of Cal State LA, and a single mama of 3. And in recent years, you've seen the uprisings against police violence in Black and brown communities across the United States. In 2020, in the midst of global pandemic, hundreds of thousands of people took the streets to protest the assassination of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer. Can you share with us, in your perspective, what does the struggle for democracy looks like for Black communities seeking liberation here in the United States?
I think I can. We'll see. We'll see. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really grateful to be in this space. I'm grateful for the People's Summit. Hey, is that Baba Keeley that just walked in? That's Baba Keeley. Hey, Baba Keeley is in the house. That's Baba Keeley. That's you, Baba Keeley. So I'm grateful for this space because of the energy. I'm grateful for this space because this is one of the few times where we get to step back a bit from the constancy of the struggle and build and receive from one another. So as I was trying to figure out what I was going to say, I thought about what it means that so many of you have built this People's Summit over the years. What it means to build a People's Summit in the face of global oppression. We're giving them across town a big middle finger, right? We're saying, you are over there plotting and planning, and I'm sorry, it's the end of the day, and I drank a yerba mate, which I'm told makes me high. So I'ma just, my mama's not gonna like it, but I'ma just speak the way I wanna speak. We are saying fuck you to them across town who are plotting and planning our demise. We're saying you can plot and plan all you want, but we plotting and planning too. We plotting and planning our freedom. And I bet you we will win. I bet you we will win. Because we're winning in our coming together. We're winning by who's in the room. We're winning by contemplating what it means to live in a free and beautiful and liberated, not just city, not just a nation, but a world of freedom. So I'm grateful to be in this space. I'm also grateful for the spirit that inhabits this space. I know we've acknowledged that we are on the stolen land of indigenous people that was built by the stolen and labor and lives of African people, and so we summon those ancestors into this space, and we pray that the work that we do honors them, that we honor them, that we avenge the theft of their lives, and that we avenge the targeting and attempted annihilation of our people, but we don't die, we multiply. So what does this struggle look like? What does this struggle look like? The words that came to me this morning were the words of Paul Robeson, who said, "The battlefront is everywhere, there is no sheltered rear." The battlefront is everywhere, there is no sheltered rear. As a black mama, as a professor, as an organizer, as my grandmother's granddaughter and my mama's daughter, as my daughter's mama and my son's mama, as a community member, the battlefront is everywhere. The battlefront is in my daughters and sons' classrooms. The battlefront is in my neighborhood. The battlefront is the way I woke up this morning and had to try to figure out how to make my kids get to school on time, right? That's a battlefront. The battlefront is keeping these whack-ass sheriffs out of this room. The battlefront is fighting back against a system that tells you you're supposed to cheer when you get liberalism instead of conservatism when we want freedom. The battlefront is everywhere. The battlefront is everywhere. And so, you know, as I was thinking about the words of Paul Robeson, I also thought about the words of Boots Riley. I hope y'all know Boots Riley of the Kua, you know, before he was a filmmaker, he was an MC, right? So in Get Up, Boots Riley says, "They only give you two choices, be a rebel or a slave." They only give you two choices, be a rebel or a slave. So what you do, so I rebel like an ulcer in the belly of the beast. I rebel like an ulcer in the belly of the beast. We gotta remember that there is a necessity of struggle. We can't submit to our own oppression. We have to rebel like an ulcer in the belly of the beast. We have to use every tool to rebel. We have to refuse to submit. We have to refuse to submit, and it makes it feel like the battlefront is everywhere, because it is. And sometimes we want to get tired. We want to sit down, we want to lay down, we want to submit, but we can't submit. We can't submit. There is a necessity of constant struggle. We have to struggle. We have to struggle every time someone uses the wrong words, we have to correct them. Every time someone treats our children as something less than human beings, we have to stop them. We have to hold our sisters and brothers and siblings close. We have to refuse to submit. We have to refuse to submit to the myth that we should be looking for a comfortable place in oppression. We have to refuse to submit. We have to fight all the time, and I know it's tired. I know it makes us tired. And so what does it look like? It looks like sometimes taking a breath, but never sitting down, never stopping, right? Because we have to struggle, and that struggle has to take many forms. And I'm looking at my Black Lives Matter comrades sitting here. I'm looking at Baba Akili, I'm looking at Pastor James, I'm looking at Sheila, and I would name all y'all, but I'd use up my last 7 minutes if I did. All y'all Black Lives Matter rebels, stand up. I'm looking at Sister... Black lives, we matter here. Black lives, we matter here. I know Joseph is saying, why you make me stand up? You know I broke my ankle, right? Look, that struggle looks like every piece that we all bring to this movement. Sometimes it's prayer. Sometimes it's prayer. And some of y'all in here, I know y'all don't believe in prayer. I believe in prayer, right? Black people never won freedom without a spiritual element to our struggle. And so we are embracing the spirituality that won us the revolution in Haiti. We are embracing the spirituality that won us freedom from chattel slavery. We're embracing the spirituality that caused Fannie Lou Hamer, Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, to make it through that beating that should have stolen her life, right? We're embracing that spirituality. We're also recognizing that struggle looks like education, liberatory models of education. Dr. Tabitha Jones Jolivet, right? We're recognizing that that struggle looks like the radical black stretch that we do every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. as we chant down the Police Protective League and lean forward and show them our asses. Don't know what I'm talking about? You should come out on a Wednesday at 4 p.m. at 1313 West 8th Street, right? That struggle looks like the way in which we reimagine communities and say that family isn't just what white supremacist, patriarchal, heteronormative capitalism says it is. It doesn't mean that I, as a single black mama of 3 kids, am solely responsible for my 3 children. We all are. We all are. Struggle looks like y'all saying, you know what, I'll be an auntie or an uncle or a big brother or whatever and come help you with your children so that you can have a moment to take a breath, but you can't sit down, right? That's what struggle looks like. Struggle looks like remembering that what happened in Buffalo just 3 weeks ago, that the world tells us we're supposed to forget. We're supposed to forget that a white supremacist terrorist named Peyton Gendrone staked out Tops Market in East Buffalo for weeks and weeks and weeks and maybe months, and had a whole system of white supremacy behind him, watching him and egging him on, including former federal so-called law enforcement, as he walked into that grocery store and slaughtered our mothers and grandmothers and aunties and deacons and uncles and fathers and brothers and sisters, and injured 4 others and terrorized an entire community. And he didn't do it alone. He did it because this country is built on white supremacy, and so is the entire global structure, right? Struggle looks like not just saying Miss Cat's name, but doing what Miss Cat, who was stolen in that act, would want us to do. Rise the fuck up. Rise the fuck up, right? That's what struggle looks like. Struggle looks like never giving an inch. That's what struggle looks like. And I just want to make sure that when we say struggle, we remember that struggle means struggling against white supremacy, struggling against patriarchy, struggling against heteronormativity, struggling against heterosexism and transphobia and capitalism, in the words of Manolo de los Santos. You can either struggle for the people and the planet, or you can struggle for capitalism, right? You can struggle for, so we struggle against some things, but we also struggle for some things. So as we struggle to topple white supremacy and patriarchy and heterosexism and transphobia and capitalism, we struggle for a world of liberation. A world where we're not tethered to these systems of oppression. That's what liberation is. Makani Temba taught me that, right? That there's a difference between liberation and freedom, right? We also struggle for a freedom where my children aren't just plopped into desks that they don't quite fit in and told they have to sit there for an hour and 40 minutes in order to earn a grade that really means nothing about their intellect, right? That we are struggling for a freedom that allows Amara Keone to dance and laugh and be in her fullest self, right? That's my middle daughter, right? That allows all of our children to do that. There's a difference between liberation and freedom. So liberation means untethering. Freedom means stepping into the world that we dare to imagine. So we dare to imagine and to build a world of freedom for our people. We dare to struggle for, not just struggle against. We dare to struggle for, not just struggle against. So when we went to Buffalo, we are struggling against, you know, there being a system where there's only one market for, what was it, 1.4 miles? Carlene, was it one market for 1.4 miles? Yeah. We want to struggle against that, but we want to also build a space where there aren't food deserts, right? Where there is a presence of healthy food for our people, right? What are we struggling for? What are we building? Finally, I want to just add this. The struggle for democracy looks like victory. It looks like victory. So this time of being tired will one day come to an end, right? So I always say you got to struggle, you got to fight in every place. And there will be a place of rest because we're going to win. We are winning. We are winning. Here in Los Angeles, we just had a candidate for mayor who dared to put abolition on the table. Gina Viola might not have made the runoff, but she put abolition on the table. And guess who did make the runoff? Kenneth Mejia is going to be our city controller. And a brother named Faisal Gill, who stands with us in front of the LA Police Protective League and chants it down every single Wednesday, is going to be our city attorney. And so we are winning. We are winning a world of freedom for our people, and victory is what it looks like. So we're going to just close with this, or I'm going to close with this, that when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you so much, Dr. Melina. Thank you. And now let's welcome Pablo Alvarado. He spent several years as a day laborer in the United States before co-founding the Institute for Popular Education of Southern California in 1991, Los Jornaleros del Norte Day Laborer Band in 1996, and the National Day Laborer Organization Network in 2001. Amazing, thank you. Pablo, can you share more about your work with communities that you're in relationship with and your experience in struggle for democracy as it relates to the immigrant community, particularly the day laborers?
Sí, con mucho gusto. Y lo voy a hacer en español. No sé cómo vamos a hacer esto acá.
Todos tienen headphone.
Todos tienen headphone, ¿verdad?
Essence is a beautiful concept, and when it's practiced in the right way, it's something even more beautiful. But this concept and this practice has been poisoned by capitalism. It has been poisoned by avarice of the owners of the production means. It has been poisoned with racism, white racism. It has been poisoned with xenophobia. So we had that lesson in this room to clean up that concept and that practice that has been poisoned. And I was asking myself, so who is the person that has to do that cleaning up? I was thinking of the people that are the victims of this system, the victims of capitalism, the victims and the people that have survived the biggest threats of this horrible capitalism. Among this pandemic, there have been a lot of things that have been clarified. One, who are those that keep the lights on? Who are those that make it possible to take the food, the vegetable to the tables of families? It has been made very clear. And for a moment, they were called essential workers. Although for us, each work is essential, especially when our families depend from that. But they introduced that term because they like it. They like to divide the communities, the working class, between those that deserve and that don't deserve. And we are not accepting that. So when I made myself that question of who is going to clean up this lack of order where we're finding ourselves in order to go back for democracy, toward democracy, who are going to be the people that are going to create that change? I was thinking about the teaching of Pablo Freire, an educator. And he used to say that the people that suffer from oppression are those that are going to free themselves. And in that process of liberation, they're also going to free the oppressor. These are the people that have to clean up this lack of order that has been caused by capitalism.
In the midst of this pandemic, the forces of the market forces have conspirated with the political class, and they have literally decided that there's a segment in the population that it's okay that they could be submitted to premature death. The reality is that for a lot of people, especially for workers, of low-income workers, the option to stay home and work behind the computer, to work with through the phone, it didn't exist. That wasn't a possibility, and it doesn't exist. And they have to go out to the streets. They had to go out to the street to work. And as a result, they paid a big price. Only in California, 58% of the people that died were immigrant. That tells us who the liberal democracy really serves. It's very clear.
Entonces, ¿quiénes son los que tienen que limpiar y enderezar? Pues son precisamente esas personas. Pero para ello hay que hacer formación política.
Because the same Brazilian educator who says that when people didn't have access to liberatory education, the dream of the oppressor, of the oppressed, is to be the oppressor, and that's we have to reject that. And when you ask me, how do we do this in our practice, I want to highlight two fights that we are currently involved in. The first campaign is essentially to protect the TPS, which is the acronym for Temporary Protective Status, which are the Central American immigrants from Africa, who have been given a temporary protective status, which is a migratory status. When Trump administration came in, they decided to eliminate that program, to cancel it. And they referred to the countries that are beneficiaries of this program as shitholes, and I'm going to say it in English. They refer to those countries as shithole countries. The countries, well, people of color come from. And he said that he would prefer people from Norway. And because people from Norway are not the ones that are going to fix this putrid democracy. It's only the people from El Salvador and they're going to do it, and some of them are already present here. I want our compas from the TPS to please stand up. Our people that are struggling for the TPS, please stand up and say hi. What do we want? Permanent residency. When do we want it? Now. Nothing about us without us. And so it's us, the oppressed, that are going to change the situation without intermediaries. People need to speak for themselves. And so that's one of the efforts that are involved in. Our battle and our struggle is a fight that's anti-colonial as well. It's a fight that is abolitionist. But we also understand that we also have to make next steps in this fight, and that's what our compas are doing. We also, in our organization, also represents the peasants and the peasant workers, the people, the men. The men and women that are coming from poor countries, impoverished country, especially from Mexico and Central America. Indigenous peoples, indigenous communities are the ones that stand in front of the Home Depot because that's the only thing that they have. That's their work, and they do it with a lot of love and a lot of pride, with their head standing tall. And here we are, saying, here I am, I'm offering my work and my labor. They fought to not be on the street, so it wasn't to not be an igloo, to be illegal, to sit somewhere and offer employment. They even go to the Justice, and they took to court more than 20 municipalities, and at the end, they prevailed. And that right to be on the street, to offering work, it's not just for them, but it's all for people in the United States that at any time they might have the necessity to be on the streets looking for work. Those are the changes. Those are the changes. The most beautiful changes that you can see, the changes are coming from the bottom, the changes that are made from the people. And also in the midst of this pandemic, well, I don't really know a worker, a peasant worker, whose wages haven't been stolen. And then they haven't tell to the employer, you know what, that their employer has to say, if you like it well, if you don't like it well, I'm not going to pay you because you don't have papers. It's very common to find that in a day-to-day in every corner. But it's also our struggle has made common the fact that people are standing up to fight. That threat of getting punished because they denounce their employer, the abusive employer, we are dissipating that through our struggle and through our fight. And I want to present also the fight of our compas from the worker center from Las Vegas. I don't know if they're here, our compas. If you are here, please stand up. Well, I want to tell you, because they're not here, I want to tell you what they're doing and what they're about to succeed on. Since our organization started, one of the struggles and fights have been that the government protects all workers. That says my rights are being violated. That this government suspends the deportation, so we can take that threat away of punishment because I am denouncing my employer. And right now they're trying to create an administrative change on the government of that country, in this country, and the Department of Labor for the first time in an articulation on a partnership to take away deportation from people that come out and say my salary is being stolen, and next week they're announcing a change in the internal policy, which I know is not going to be enough, but at least we can start working against that fear of peasant workers not being able to denounce their abusive employers because of fear of deportation. And I know that we're gonna succeed on that change, because that's not the end of our fight. And so when we talk about who's gonna protect us and who's gonna fight for this democracy, is this peoples. Is the peoples that have been dispossessed, the most humblest of peoples, the people that cannot think that they can be change makers, the most humblest people, humble people. That is something that I am as a student of Black history and the African American peoples, and that's a learning that us migrants have learned from. And the same people that hates migrants is the same people that hate the African American people. And at this moment, the migrant community, it's in this dilemma. They're between those that have pity, those that came out crying when the kids were in the cages. But it was because Trump, the ones that were caging migrants, but they stopped crying because now it's not Trump. Now is Biden, Biden's administration. And so we're in the middle of those people that have pity for us and the people that have that hates us, the supremacists from the reactionary right. That's where the migrant is at. On a good day, every day, if you turn on the TV, and all you're gonna hear about migrant people is that they're invading us. You're gonna hear so many horrible languages that they're invaders, illegals, and that's what the United States peoples are listening every day. It's like, and you hear like, oh, poor them, but we're the voices of the migrant people, and that's what needs to change. And that's what's going to straighten this democracy, when the humble peoples win and struggle and fight to create those spaces so the people have their voice.
Gracias por tus palabras. Now I'm introducing Citlalli Hernández. She is visiting us from Mexico. Citlalli comes from a family with leftist political conviction. She has been a social activist, member, and promoter of student movements and mobilizations. She was a teen. She has supported the construction and strengthening of Morena, the political organization, in various locations in the Republic. and she is currently a senator of the Republic of Mexico City. Welcome, Citlalli. You have heard about some of the struggles for democracy here in the United States. It is particularly important for us to hear from the voices of Latin America, who have been historically and brutally impacted by U.S. foreign policies. Citlalli, would you share with us what are the struggles for democracy in Mexico currently, and what are the developments of that struggle? What is your perspective on the struggles for democracy in Mexico and the rest of the continent?
Gracias. Mi inglés es muy malo, así que también hablaré en español. Primero permítanme saludar.
Say hi to all people here present and to acknowledge the effort of everybody that's organizing this great summit on the view of the resistance and fighting against a summit that's been organized for those that oppress us. So I want to tell a little bit of what has happened in the case of Mexico, and I'm going to share some of the reflections of what it means that struggle for democracy. First, it's imposed on us through this system, this political and economic system, a route that sometimes looks invincible. They sell us this false idea of democracy. In the name of democracy, they violate again rights of a lot of people and peoples and communities, and they give us this idea that we are living in the best expression of democracy. On one side, they tell us that democracy is the power of the people, and from the other side, when the peoples reach their own destiny, when the peoples in the community define their own route in their own countries, they question their democracy as if there's only one type of democracy available. And in the Mexican case, we've been struggling for decades just for having a government for the people, by the people, and for the people. So the great struggle of the Mexican people have began as an opposition and just for persisting those realities, because in this world that we are living right now, where they sell us this false democracy, is only a few that take these decisions, and it's only a few that impose those decisions upon all of us. And also in this capitalistic system, there's the idea of imposing a way of being, a way of dressing, a way of thinking, and even a way of speaking. And the resistance of our peoples, about that only way of being, of acting, it's brutal. And I think is the first element for what I believe in change, because of the resistance. And there's been like 50 years or more of that resistance to be able to get to this place right now that Mexico is living. Starting in 1968, where there was a big student movement that fought against the authoritarian system, that demanding justice, demanding freedom, and it was violently repressed, and it stays in history and the Mexican memory as a great genocide, because those some people were killed, tortured, and disappeared, whose only sin was to go into the streets and to go and protest in a pacific way and to reclaim, to claim to build a different Mexico. If you point like 1968 all the way to the 2018, it was when the first time there has been democracy on an electoral manner. It's been 50 years of different attempts of having a new destiny. And obviously, like the story of many countries, there has been different attempts and different struggles, methods of technologies. They try to take the power through guerrilla, urban guerrilla, There's been resistance movements, especially at the south of the country. There's been distinctive social movements, peasant movements, workers' movements, students' movements. And regretfully, this system, in the name of democracy, this political system in Mexico got imposed for 80 years, imposed itself through elections every 6 years, but with electoral fraud, with corruption, and regretfully, they tried to repress and to stop those battles, those fights from the Mexican peoples.
Social movements are not the only struggle. The way that we've tried to take power to construct part of that popular power that is a democracy, that has been a peaceful struggle of conscience. And I was telling you about 1968 when the student movement was brutally repressed. After that, in 1982, the people of Mexico went out to vote for a change. And there was electoral fraud. Then in 2000, the country of Mexico voted for a change, buying a false idea of a political party that used to say that they were different, but that was not the case. It was basically a continuity of 80 years of a political party that had become the party in power, and then in 2016 people voted again for change. The majority voted for López Obrador, and we live in a fraud, an electoral fraud that signified a profound act of resistance from the people of Mexico, because they were fed up. They were fed up to try to get things through the vote, through peace. They couldn't even tap into the maximum expression of popular power, but at least they wanted to have their vote respected by the government and to get a different government. And in 2006, it was a very interesting stage in Mexico. I was 16 then, but I remember it as if I had voted. The people of Mexico were mad. They were upset. And at that moment, they were asking that López Obrador stop doing the same thing. They wanted, and they were willing to take up arms. López Obrador has said this several times. He used to say that a representative could put his life in danger, but not the life of others in danger. But truly, the desire to act through other means is motivated by anger, but the truth is that we took the road to organize, to make people conscious, and then in 2006, that ire, that anger manifested itself in one of the biggest marches in the city of Mexico, which basically upset a lot the traditional political party and the businessmen, but that very few recognized that it was a way to contain a possible violence. After that, Manuel López Obrador decided to go throughout the entire country and he's basically the only politician that has known every crook and cranny of our country, and that means that he knows the necessities of all of the different communities, the indigenous people in the coast and the mountains, the situation in the north with the maquilas in the south. And as a result, he called for a project of nation building where he added academics, people of social movement, different organizations that wanted a change in the country. He started to build a grassroots organization that was made up of going house to house and speaking with people about the possibility of conquering an alternative project of nation building, and help them to participate in politics, which has been one of the tools of that minority in the name of democracy. And that has been the attempt to push away the majority of the political activity. saying that all politicians are the same, that they do everything the same. And if they're all the same, I'm going to resist. And I'm going to believe that reality is not going to change. But what he did is that he went through all of the houses, he talked to people, he went out to the public spaces, recognizing, making this project known, inviting people to participate in this project and inviting them to organize in this group. In 2012, Manuel López Obrador became a presidential candidate. We saw the worst fraud that we had seen in our country. It was an investment of great funds of money, a lot of money, and afterwards the Electoral College realized that it was coming from illicit sources. But the interpreter is not able to understand. There was a movement that questioned the candidacy of Enrique Peña Nieto because it was accompanied by different media interests, and that literally built a personality, a mannequin, to put it at the service of the interests that had created him and put him in power. So I think that the people of Mexico is very big because from so many failures, they have never lost hope. And 2018, we learned a lot. We learned that if we had gone by the peaceful option, organizing, we needed to look for a way where they wouldn't do the same thing to us, where we needed to teach the youth that had been misused to not give their vote and to find a more wider evolution of conscientiousness so that they could see all of the lies that had been pushed against our movement. In 2012, AMLO López Obrador announced to all of the political parties that had been alongside his movement, and he decided that the social groups become a political group, thinking maybe it called that it was something easy, but thinking that this was going to be a tool to take power. But in 2018, we won. It was all the differences that we needed with 30 million votes. There was no possibility of having fraud. We convinced people that we had won the war against, the dirty war against our movement. And one of the reflections that we've had in Morelia is that getting to power, it's just the start, it's just the beginning. It doesn't mean that we win a government, it just means that we're taking power. Because the truth is that those people that are at the top is not just the elected officials, it is something that there are different interests that govern all of these different interests that have bought into this liberal idea of democracy to legitimize a puppet that makes decisions for all of those powers that are the true power. We noticed this when we took Manuel López Obrador through the presidency, that we had just started the fight to build a different kind of power, a different kind of model. A model without all of these oligarchies, the interest of countries like the United States, the businessmen. There was a quantity of interest that we have been sharing. And if we asked ourselves, this overtaking of power has not only started a new economic plan, but the expression of what democracy is the connection to the popular movement. the instance of action. It's something that we continue to build. And it's something that what I think we can share with you. This great democratic struggle in our communities is for their freedom. And in some countries, the only route that we have left is maybe the electoral route, it's the peaceful route, but it's not enough. If we are not able to get the participation of the majority, if we cannot construct a new reality, if we don't work against the capitalism, the patriarchy, the colonialism, the vision that attempts against freedom, freedom of gender. And in the case of Mexico, we are still struggling on this. We have won several victories, but the victories that we've had leave us with dissatisfaction, because that just means that we're going to be fighting to liberate our country and our people. And we are going to fight despite the difficulties that all of this means. And we know that we are facing something that we've known, the most perverse conservative sectors against the people, that is opposed against the transformations from the people, democratic transformation. That's what is happening when they question democracy in Venezuela, in the road that Cuba and other countries have chosen to take, because it seems as if those great interests do not want the people to look at the examples where popular power is advancing in its maximum expression. It seems as if they want us to buy into the false democratic idea that they want to impose on us. But we live in very interesting times, and there is a possibility not only of thinking that we can do something different, but we also have the possibility to oppose against those that we are not happy with. But there is the possibility to also transform a new reality and to start on a route towards transformation and liberation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think that sometimes we forget. And, well, at least here in the United States, we're constantly recreating that wheel, right? We're constantly starting from zero. Okay? Well, entonces mi próximo huésped, el próximo panelista es un educador, Phillip Agnew. Es capacitador, maestro y un crítico cultural. En el 2019, él se unió a la campaña de Bernie Sanders y luego lo nombraron como uno de los concejales de más alto rango en esta campaña. Él está trabajando para ayudar a transformar a los hombres negros y a organizar a las personas de este país para que puedan votar.
More on issues related to voting rights as it relates to the working class and Black communities, and on your experience organizing in the Black communities towards the development of popular and participatory democracy.
Okay. All power to the people.
All power.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
All love to the people.
All love to the people.
Love to the people.
Love to the people.
Peace to the people.
Peace to the people.
Peace to the people.
Peace to the people.
Victory to the people.
Victory to the people.
Victory to the people.
Victory to the people.
I'm very honored to be here. Let me move it back. I'm very honored to be here with you all today. I had the opportunity to talk to a number of comrades that I haven't seen in person in a very long time. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel very filled by this gathering. The pandemic whether you lost family members or not, which many of us did, whether you lost jobs or not, which many of us did, whether you lost relationships or not, which many of us did, the pandemic had a great depreciating effect on all of our spirits and all of our energies. And we've learned to normalize it very quickly, to normalize death, to normalize destruction, externally and internally. And so I think personally for me, I hadn't realized, I had known my fuel tank was on E, but I just want to thank the organizers of this event and everybody for coming, because I don't know about y'all, but my tank is starting to feel a little bit higher. And so I just want to say that. I truly mean it, and I really do look forward to all the conversations that we're going to have, and the dancing and the mystica and the drinking, and it's going to be great. January 6, 2021, there was an insurrection led by the President of the United States against the United States, ostensibly, and attempted coup. And there was a lot that went into that day, a lot of planning that went into today, and there's a lot that has been said about that day, and there's a lot more that will be said about that day. But one thing I want to acknowledge in the context of this conversation is it was just the latest example of the United States' concerted effort to steal the franchise away from the people. This effort by our former president and possibly future president, if we don't organize, was an effort to take away votes from places like Atlanta, Georgia, states like Michigan, states like Pennsylvania, states like Arizona. These states have a high population of black and brown people. And no matter whether we believe they were trying to reinstall the president, what it did highlight on that day was the farce of the electoral process in this country, the fact that the people don't actually decide who leads them in this country and really never have. And furthermore, that this country is still intent on making sure that black people, that brown people's votes don't matter. This is just the latest in a history in a country that never has provided democracy, has never been about democracy. We are a country founded on money, founded on wealthy white men and their attempts still to this day to keep power over here and the rest of the world. And so when we look at the struggle for democracy, we've got to couch it in that history, the fact that we've never experienced a true democracy here in the United States, and that the United States has spent billions and trillions of dollars to ensure that no one around the world experiences democracy either. Democracy is... There's a lot of definitions of democracy, and when I found out I would be on this panel, I decided to look them up. And because I haven't had much experience with it. But my own definition, which I kind of workshopped with Eugene earlier, is that, democracy is one of our highest human ideals. It is the ability of the people to decide what our destinies look like, what our lives look like, the water, the air, the planet, the lives of our children, how they're educated. It is the responsibility of each of us also in deciding what our destinies look like, because it calls upon each of us not to be selfish with our ideals, to consider what it looks like or what it costs for us to have the things that we have in this country, what it costs other parts of the world, what it costs us for our liberty here, and the repercussions and consequences in Haiti or in Cambodia or in Vietnam. And so democracy is both a power and a responsibility that this country has consistently worked tirelessly to make sure that the people in this room do not have. Because democracy, a true democracy, a country or a government built by the people, for the people, cannot exist with capitalism. Capitalism is a soul-crushing economic system. Capitalism requires of each of us that we silence our true selves, that we look at other human beings as less than human, as we look at everything as a commodity, things to be bought and sold, people to be bought and sold, desires and hobbies to be bought and sold. A government of the people cannot exist with patriarchy, a system that believes in the empire of man, that silences all the emotion that each of us have as human beings. A true democracy cannot exist with a white supremacy. And so when we understand so to me, a struggle for democracy is a struggle that requires not only our government to rid itself of those evils, but requires each of us to rid ourselves of those evils. Democracy is very, very hard. And that's why in this country, when it was founded, they decided that they only wanted a very few people to have it. Wealthy white men with land. Not even all white men. They didn't even give it to all of y'all. Just the ones with land. Your cousin with no land, you wouldn't give him no democracy? Okay. And then once more people got the franchise in the United States, they sought to curtail that power through gerrymandering, through ensuring that southern states still have an outsized impact on the electoral process in the United States, those racist places that still count jail bodies, that still count Latino and black bodies in their states, but don't give them rights, but still have outsized power. That's still the struggle for democracy today in the United States. I'll also say, and then I'll end here because I would love to leave some more time. The struggle for democracy is one that we've got to all engage with in the organizations that we build. Democracy is very, very, very hard and laborious. Democracy requires each of us to relinquish the control over the outcome. Democracy requires each of us to have a radical transparency with how we move, with the decisions that we make. And so we can't require, we can, actually I'm not gonna say that, we must require a country be truly democratic. And we've got to work to build a democratic muscle within our organizations, within our homes. We can't expect for the next generation of young people to just spontaneously desire to have a say in their state of affairs in their country if we never allow that in their homes. I didn't grow up in a democratic house. It's all good. I turned out okay. Everything is good. I'm still good with mom and dad. But we've got to build a radical democracy in our lives, in our organizations, if we are to expect when we take power for us to have the experience that it requires, the patience that it requires, the honesty with ourselves and our people that it requires. We must tell the people no lies, claim no easy victories. We all know what that says, but it is a great power and responsibility. So the struggle for democracy, in addition to everything everybody has said, which I agree wholeheartedly, does require us to continue to fight against a capitalist empire that wants to take the franchise and never give it to anybody in here, but to also struggle with democracy with each other. And I'm excited about that process because it is a process that requires that we uproot the capitalist notion that we should control all things inside of us, to uproot the patriarchal notion that there's only one way to do and one way to be, and it's the way of the strong man, to uproot the white supremacist ideal that there's only one way to do things. And when we do that, that transformation does have real repercussions and consequences for what we're building. So for me, The struggle for democracy includes all things external, internal, in the country and in our organizations, and I'm just excited to be a participant in that process with you all.
Thank you, Phil. I didn't look up the word because I feel like, you know, democracy is something that we build together, and it's something that we together collectively try to embody and try to work at every day. But it's good to hear your definition. I really appreciate it. One of the things that, for all of us, I feel this pandemic has taught us one thing. And I think that that one thing is that we can no longer be working in silos. That we're not brown or black today, that we're not a worker tomorrow, and the next day we're not just tenants, and the next day we're not just, I mean, we cannot box our realities in different ways. We are complete human beings that deserve a complete system that gives us what we need, whether it's housing, health care, a living wage. And one of the things that I wanted to ask all of you is, how do we break those boundaries, those lines of division? And I not just say it here within the United States, but internationally. I mean, for some of us, internationalism means one-day protest against the United States for whatever they're doing, whether it's Palestine, Venezuela, but how do we start breaking down those things that are dividing us to create a democracy that it's not just a democracy within governments, but it's a democracy within our communities, a democracy within our entire continent, especially having a lot of our guests here that are coming from different parts of Latin America.
So I know that the title of this panel is The Struggle for Democracy, and here's how I've been grappling with it. So I also did the same thing you did, Phil, right? And that's weird that I would look it up because by training I'm a political scientist, so you would think I would know what democracy is, right? But kind of where I've landed is that I don't know that the struggle, the primary struggle, is for democracy. And what I mean by that is democracy is a process rather than an endpoint, right? Democracy is the how we struggle. It's not the vision. So the vision, I think the way that we break through barriers is, yes, we have to have a democratic process. It can't be like, you know, one person determining or a small group of people determining. It has to be a collective determining. And I want to get into this whole thing that Baba Akili teaches us about, yes, we all contribute, right? So like we try to develop a group-centered leadership model in Black Lives Matter, and that doesn't mean you just get to waltz in and dictate because we're democratic, right? So everybody has an equal say. No, this is how Brother Baba Akili says it. No, brother, your authority has to match your level of investment, right? So, you know, you don't just get to waltz in and say, well, I think we shouldn't be protesting outside of the Police Protective League. Well, put some work in and then maybe you can help determine, right? So there's a, it's important that we have a democratic process where we contribute based on our level of investment. And I think the way that we break down barriers is to also vision. So again, democracy to me is not the end, it's the process. And we break down barriers and come into community with each other, come into a democratic process with each other by sharing a vision, right? By working towards a common view of what the world should look like, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Compañeros?
Bueno, coincido que la democracia es...
I think that we have to rebuild everything, everything that has been imposed on us. The state of things and rebuild, I think, is a really long struggle. So to create a new type of social consensus and to point what we call in Mexico the revolution of consciousness. If we can break away from all those barriers that have been imposed on us, that we cannot. We were born in the most neoliberal maximum expression of capitalism, and that tells us there's a lot of microaggressions that are experienced by both the men and the struggle. So we are trying to battle that in our own internal space. So we need to create a new social order and to liberate ourselves and to create the new possibility, to create new realities that will let us. But I think the most profound objective is to have peace amongst all of us and to build a society where there's no exclusion because you're a woman, because you're trans, because you're a sexual worker, because you're an immigrant, because you are from a country, because you're doing or not doing, and those things that are imposed as correct. And so I think that the struggle against the borders is a really long battle. But as the peoples and the world come together, we're going to meet each other on this collective consciousness, and reach the conclusion that another world is possible, and that another reality is possible, and that this humanity is it has been greatly weakened by this capitalist system. So it's not just necessary, it's urgent to get away from these destruction of our planet, of our rivers, of our lands. In the case of Mexico, it's very painful to know that a series of decisions that were taken by a few, have generated misery, poverty situations, and have created a distance so this large struggle to create a new collective consciousness and to ensure that this planet continues to live on, and hopefully, like my compa said here, I am hopeful that the United States one day can liberate itself, and that it's acting in the name of democracy, but never recognize the democratic processes in other parts of the world. If that already exists here and in these lands, because my lands were also stalling as well. But if that liberation exists, I think the way that it could get contagious to other parts of the world, the way and that we can articulate ourselves. But that's why I think spaces like this work, because international solidarity, the encounter, and to be able to look at each other beyond borders, and to know that every day where it's more people united on this struggle.
The United States, it is imperative that we push back against the nonprofit notion that our organizations must work on single issues that last for 1 year or one grant reporting period. There is no environmental justice that's not connected to reproductive justice or environmental justice or racial justice. And the notion over the last 50 years that we should build organizations that are single issue, or that only focused on one issue, and that the fighting for and standing up for other issues is some form of solidarity is a ridiculous notion. And so I think in the U.S., amongst a number of other things that we've got to do to continue to fight back against tribalism and foolish individualism and neoliberalism in left form is to continue to push back against nonprofits that have set about bifurcating our work for the last 60 to 70 years along arbitrary issue areas that last for 1 year and mean nothing to the people that we're organizing. And so in addition to everything that's been said, you know, solidarity requires that we understand that we are all burdened with the same burden on each of us equally, and that a victory for one group on one issue in one place truly is a victory for all of us, and not something that we're celebrating vicariously, but we're celebrating for ourselves as well. And so I think one issue that is dominant in the United States is the proliferation of nonprofits and the proliferation of philanthropic organizations that believe that they should have the say on what is the dominant issue of the day, or what will be the hot issue of the summer, or what is the coming issue of 2023, or what we've heard people are working on in 2024, or have you heard about what they're doing here? The notion that we can divide up our work along clean issue lines is a ridiculous one, and it continues to perpetuate the notion that we are all doing different work and we're all siloed, and which you're speaking to a real condition, but one that was created by our enemies and further catered to by people who just want the money.
Thank you.
Can I respond just real quick to that?
Yeah. And then Pablo.
So I hope this is an and, right?
Yeah.
And, yes, I agree with what you're saying, and when So when we see when there's a common vision for freedom, we say when Skip Townsend or Akila Shirills or, Oya Shirills is doing work to address community violence that comes from white supremacy, and they get grants and they are winning in Watts, right? That's also my victory.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
so it's really important that we see ourselves as partners in struggle rather than competitors for funds.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Melina. Pablo.
Bueno, yo cuando me dijeron cómo se llamaba este panel, la lucha por la democracia, sentí algo así medio raro, no sabía qué pensar, porque nuestros pueblos han sido, pues son sobrevivientes de más prácticas antidemocráticas que de otra cosa. Entonces eso es lo que se siente.
And so that's what I feel. That's what I've been feeling, that I couldn't really define. But this conversation with my comrades over here and with all of you has left things a little bit clearer for me about why we have to fight for democracy. And Citlalli, I think that she said it in the way that I would kind of say it, a world without borders, not just physical borders, not just the borders that divide us, and that are capable of creating any kind of injustice, any kind of active omission during our liberation practices. And I would like to tell a story. In 1996, there was a campaign against HIV, and the LA County Department of Health hired a mobile clinic, and they would go to the club where workers would go every day, and they would take mariachis and food, so workers would go there. And this one time, the City of Industry, we had a campaign with the sheriff, and we had a campaign against the sheriff. We were winning this fight, but in order to pull apart that fight, the sheriff, as the political representative of that area, combined to call my immigration. And what happens is that one day in March, when the mobile clinic was giving services, there were 40 people, men, people were eating, children. We were there with the needles, you know, taking blood tests, and suddenly at the parking lot, we see 6 vehicles that arrive, black, the doors open up, and they were ICE, or immigration agents. The workers that were sitting, they pulled out their needles, and everybody started to run. One of those workers, a Honduran man, had about 6 months in the United States, and he had found an old guitar in a trash can. And that day, when we called an emergency meeting, and as it happened, 50 workers arrived to talk about what had occurred. Omar Sierra was the name of this worker who was playing the guitar, and that day, when he got home after having run out, he wrote down a corrido, a type of song, the way that the people from Mexico and Central America tell their story, with the corrido about what had happened in the City of Industry that morning. And so he took that old guitar, he sang it for the 50 workers that had arrived, and that expression, what he had created was to recover that ugly story, and he had made it into a song, and he had brought it back to the group of people, that community that had lived through that. And at that moment, the entire room changed. And that's when we understood the labor of creating the group, the band that's going to be playing today. That's when we created that group. So I think that through art and culture, although we may sing a little bit ugly, some of us, it's that way that we're going to get closer to one another. And Marco, I want you to show the poster that you're bringing. Oh, you don't have it. Oh, well, we have a very nice poster. I want you to go and look at it because we're going to give one away. Thank you so much. Estamos tan agradecidas, tan honradas por tener.
And to really come down with a conversation that allows us to build from. One of the things that I kept saying while we were organizing this and inviting organizations to be a part of this is, this summit might have started as a response to the Summit of the Americas, right. But this summit is the beginning of a building of relationships and a building of democracy, not just in Los Angeles, but across the continents.
Yes.
So, with that said, I want to thank everyone for participating, and I do want to remind you that we do have a beautiful concert being put together. Los Jornaleros del Norte, Quitapenas, a lot of folks that are just going to be, this is a moment for us to celebrate. This is a moment for us to be together. Our summit has been bigger than the Summit of the Americas.
Come on. Come on.
Our our desire for liberation and for struggle, it's stronger than theirs. There is nothing that they're gonna be able to do to break us down. And let's show them while we dance, while we participate tomorrow and Friday, while we march. This is the moment in which we can and should come together and push back. This is where we don't take a breath, but we dance. So please, let's go out and dance and show this world what democracy looks like.